Hey you guys, it's MJ from Alta Love. How are you? I wanted to talk today a little bit about the difference between a reactivity and a grounded presence, and ultimately how it requires us to meditate for probably a really long time before we can really effectively be a grounded presence for ourselves and other. And realizing that there's actually a lot of veils when it comes to our own emotional density that we often have to look at and burn through. And unless we have a really dedicated discipline, be it meditation, be it yoga, be it a martial art or Tai Chi, Qigong, unless we're really dedicated and practicing these disciplines for probably months, if not years, it's very difficult for us to have this grounded presence. Instead, what happens is that we are often simply on reactivity loops. We create situations that perpetuate our own pain body. And then we don't even realize, because it's unconscious, we then go and act out the reactivity. So we go and act out separation, or we go and act out blame and attack. And I've witnessed this in my own life as I continue to just stay true to myself, that simplicity, like that simplicity of just knowing and staying true to self, has people reacting in various ways around me, and there's not much I can do about how people choose to react against me, especially when it's a choice that people make to push against and to say, no, you're wrong and I can't abide by who you are anymore, when in my own reality I'm simply continuing to choose that which is in my highest good. And when people don't vibrate with you, or when maybe underlying emotional issues, vulnerability issues, anger, resentment, bitterness, when those underlying emotions have been building up for a while, it can often appear like, sudden shift, but actually the disparity of vibration has, in a way, been there all along. And ultimately, like, we're all on a completely divine path. It's just that we can really easily use other people as a distraction to our own healing. We can focus on what everyone else is doing wrong instead of just focusing on our own manifestation, instead of focusing on our own lives. There's so much out there that it's really easy for us to think that person needs to change, this person needs to do it, how dare they behave like that, oh my god, this person, no, 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 no. And then we're in this complaining pattern, but because our words might sound nice, we don't realize, or we're just in a reaction, like, so we're in a reactive tangent and we're just fixated on that tangent, which again is on some level, especially when we're blaming, attacking, or using it against somebody else, like making it their problem that we're feeling this way, or making everybody else wrong for their behavior, then creates arrogance and self-righteousness within us. And again, like, our reality is a reflection of us. If unless we have a perfect relationship and we have infinite abundance, and unless all these things line up, and this is like the next level fucking weird paradox, is that even that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because we don't judge a book by its cover. However, I have noticed certain things, like people, how they manage money says a lot about deep down how they feel about themselves. People, how they live and how they live in their environment says a lot about them. So if there's lots of clutter, or not very much high vibrational energy, then that is a reflection of where that person or those people are. Something that really got me at one point as well, and this was me outworking a previous situation, was again people talking about this, that, and the other, but then seeing in their cupboards. So seeing in someone's cupboard that they're all full and crammed, and like you're trying to not have to look in those corners. And then that to me is so representative of like long held repressed emotion, ugly emotion as well, messy, right? If the cupboards are all messy, then there's some junk in our trunk that we don't want to look at. And it could be overspilling into our rooms, into our bedrooms, right? Soulless environments without any art, or small and dingy or whatever. It's just, and it's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's simple observation as far as, for me personally, where I believe humanity can go to. And I want to envision and see more and more humans loving the environment that they're in. We want to practice. We have all these ideas about saving the world, and yet most of us struggle just to pay the rent, right? So it's like, how valid is it when we in our own personal lives have a struggle to pay rent, and yet we feel justified blaming and attacking other people for how they live their lives? So I see that disparity, and I'm having to sit with my own reality of, yeah, people attacking me, people telling me I'm wrong, kind of out of the blue, people just saying you're wrong, or you're fucked up, or you're not in alignment with your teachings, or and I'm it's like, what can you do if somebody chooses to perceive you in a certain way? You have to walk away. And that's what I see as a self-responsibility, that when people are attacking us and judging us and blaming us for their feelings, the best thing we can do is walk away, because we're not going to meet. We're not gonna, if somebody is totally fixated on pushing against you and making you wrong, then your best bet is, again, to just walk away, because what's happened is that their pain body is active, and they're in a spin, and they're trying to deflect and push something onto you that isn't inherently yours, which is why it can feel very uncomfortable, and which is why you can find yourself reacting in ways which is totally not like you, because someone else is putting their shit onto you. And I see it. I notice it intuitively. I'll come up against things that I'm pretty amazed I even find things that are actually relevant to my own journey, and help me make sense of why people say certain things, or why people have done certain things. And again, it's just from a place of compassion. It's just so in my own process, I make sure that I come back to love and compassion for all, and I'm not holding any weird grievance or unforgiveness. It's just is what it is. People make their choices, and basically I love people even if they decide they don't like me. That's what I practice in the Fearless Life Guide. I'm like, people choose to walk away from me. People, yeah, in their own perception, make me into a, or recently I had an experience where somebody actually admitted that they'd just been denying me. And if denial is like, you don't exist, and I for years had to just kind of like, every time they were like, really like pretend like, yeah, it's everything fine, like see the best in this person and wish and hope for them for the best. And then, in fairness, if you deny someone, your behavior is not going to be really in their best interest. And a whole group of people basically acted out in ways that was really, really brutal for me, really hurtful for me, because the main person was denying me and didn't want me in existence. So that is like, wow, huge. And yet, how I own that is that heartache, I had to go through that because I tapped my own self-denial. I tapped in to my own self-betrayal, where I denied myself, where I started to try to pretend and play games and fit into other people's lives and agendas. And honestly, since going through all this heartbreak, I feel like I've just had to recreate my whole life. But I've been able to recreate it better than it ever was before. And the weird paradox, kind of sad bittersweetness of all this is like, I'm moving up and feeling better and feeling happier, and there's people that have been on this journey with me who just don't want to be happy for me. They would rather me sit and talk about other people's wounds or my wound or whatever, or project wounds onto me. And I'm just like, instead of just being joyful for people. And we don't even, again, when we're in our reactivity, we don't realize we're in our reactivity because we're too fucking busy trying to blame everybody else for how we feel. And it's a bit shit, but at the same time, I gotta say, when you get around to the other side of it and you're no longer trying to please people, and you're no longer in fear of your own survival, when you know that you're the creator and everything you got is totally supported and totally given and it's already done, and you're already in the flow and you're already this like expansive, amazing being, like no one can make you feel bad about yourself except for you. And that's why I've been able to get to this next level, is because lots of people, I guess even more recently, tried to like blame me and bring me down and tell me I was wrong and tell me I was a horrible person and tell me that my book was shit and tell me that I'm mean and like all of that. And I just had to like hold that and be like, that's okay. You're allowed to have your perspective. You're allowed to have your choice, even when it's around me or about me. And because of that perspective, you think I'm a horrible human being. I respect people's free will. That's the thing. I totally. And if someone's energetic projection is hurting me, I'm responsible enough to just walk away from it. It doesn't mean I don't like them or I hate them or anything. It just means that my intuition is saying, get the fuck away from these people. You know, these people are not vibrating in service to your highest good. That or like they're not vibrating in service to all to love, because my mission now is kind of like, or my lifeline, my life purpose is aligned with all to love, and the simplicity or the purity of all to love. Let's just try to all love each other to the best of our ability. And love doesn't mean doing everything to try to make somebody else happy. That's not love. You know, if me loving someone else means that I have to get lower energy and that I can't make my way in the world, that I'm not allowed to pursue my dreams, if that's what love is, that's fucked. And that's what I've witnessed, is that people expect me to behave in service to them, but if I want to go pursue my dreams, then I'm a horrible human being. And it's weird because they have attached their fantasy and their dreams fulfilled to my presence in their life. And that's not how this stuff works. You are the only one who can create your dream life. And the more I do that for myself, the more I gotta say it is liberating. But every time we complete a cycle, every time we go through another big shift, just be prepared. Be aware that people can attack us, people can come at us, and like you're like, oh God. And that's something I've noticed, the shift is like I'm not triggered as much, but I'm better able to be just present with people. And or what I realized is like this next level, standing my ground. It's people, I'm fully aware that the people around me are judging me and attacking me and thinking that I'm reacting or thinking that but to me personally, it's been a very different experience from the inner level, because I'm seeing reactions and integrity and empowerment and integration on a whole new level, where we then become the mirrors for other people, but we don't have to ever stop. We don't ever have to sort it out for somebody else. We can just learn, boom, and then learn, and then boom. And we can literally just walk away from energies. We're really not bound to one another. We're really not bound to fixing each other. We're really not. And again, this is where I sense all that energy around, is that there's like this sense of like, how dare you be free, or like, how dare you not do what I told you, or how dare you not make my dreams come true and go make, like, there's that kind of energy. It's disdain. It's like real. And again, that's where my compassion comes from, is like, I'm aware that when people act out like that, yeah, they're in pain, but I don't need to keep excusing their behavior. If I keep excusing their behavior, then they're never going to have a chance of seeing that they could maybe actually be responsible for their own emotions, right? If we keep feeding and pandering and making people feel okay about their victimhood, or like, oh, poor you always, I'm just like, oh my God, there are people in the world that are actually suffering. There are people in the world who are starving. There are people in the world who have nothing. And yet people in our privileged upper middle classes feel like, oh, you didn't act how I wanted you to act. How dare you? Meanwhile, they got food, they got da da da. Like, sorry, you're not a victim. You're not a victim. But your story is telling the story of victimhood. And so any of us on the empowerment path can easily try to, yeah, because we're so empathic and we're so compassionate, and yet actually take a deeper look. And what neediness is that relationship serving in us? Do we feel better then because we have these people in our lives, or because this person has this property, or because, do we now feel better than somebody else? We live in a man's world. When we pander to the men in our lives, does it make us feel more powerful and like we can just disregard the women in our lives, right? We would just want to look at that. Like, we talk about unity and love, and yet I'm very aware of how easily we disown people and separate. And again, people would judge that about my own life experience, but for me it was never just cutting people off. There was usually an explanation. There was usually a clear, from my point of view, an explanation. This is why. My intuition is saying this needs to be done, so it's done. And very rarely have I had an intuitive relapse where I've been asked to go back to a situation. You know, ultimately, if people decide to reach out to me, and this is where I found out about the whole denial thing. You know, somebody after years and years left a message just saying, yeah, I denied you. And I was like, okay, so I wasn't going crazy all that time. Because everyone around me was like, no, no, no. Or like just didn't talk about the situation that happened. But me, intuitively, energetically, every time I had to go into this environment, I'd feel really like horrible, really kind of excluded and shitty and like wrong. You know, I felt wrong. But of course, if somebody's pretending you're dead, it's gonna feel kind of off, right? It's just amazing to get to this point where you're like, wow, the intuition is always spot on. However, it's subtle. And again, unless we're meditating every day and unless it's obvious that our reality is moving in a positive momentum direction, then be really mindful of your like arrogant, egoic reactions versus like the truth of your inner knowing. And if we're all like reactive and if we're all in a mental loop of blaming someone because they're not acting how we want them to act, then I would just sit deeper in silence. And again, let's not focus on other people. Let's just focus on ourselves. I think that's it, you guys. I hope you have an awesome day. I'm uploading some guided meditations for my private clients. If you guys want some sessions, then just get in touch. £100 per session, cheaper for the Fearless Life Tribers. And oh, and then there's packages as well. Packages for you guys if, you know, the premium packages are too high end financially. There's like the lower £22 a month basically for the Fearless Life Tribe, which people are really loving. And then it goes up from there with more tailored specific video content, and then up again if you want actual... Bye!